G'day guys, it's Dom Dos Remedios here, owner and director of PT Academy, and thanks for joining us today. We're here doing our adaptability interviews with industry legends and people out there who are obviously going through a lot right now, coming out the back of COVID. And today I've got Jai Forrester, who's a big long-time friend of PTA's, wears multiple hats in the industry. Jai, thanks for joining us today. Maybe start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself.
Absolute pleasure, Dom. Thanks so much for having me. And legends of the industry, can I take that with me out of this interview? That's fantastic.
You can indeed.
I need the ego, apparently. No, I don't. Yeah, long time friend of PTA. I had a personal training studio in Melbourne for 10 years, and through educating trainers, after selling that studio, I had trainers come and go throughout the years there, and many clients over that 10-year period. And I aligned myself with the leaders in the industry as far as education goes, because with change comes a new opportunity to re-educate yourself. So for me, it was selling the studio and having time on my hands. And I think I just gave you guys a call and introduced myself and rocked up, and the relationship started from there. So that was the start of the PTA journey back in 2012, that was. So we're looking at 8 years now, I think it's been. We've been working closely together. And from there, I ended up working with Anytime Fitness Australia as project manager and personal trainer services coach. So we worked with the brand to help them build PT business inside a gym. And from the project manager job, I ended up getting itchy feet, and I wanted to get back into business ownership again. So I went and bought 2 franchises myself, and that's where I've been for the last 3 years. Working in the Anytime Fitness franchise as a franchisee now. I don't have any links with the support office at this stage. So a little bit of corporate, a little bit of PT, and a little bit of business in there as well. And obviously now we have teams of personal trainers in our gyms, and still very closely linked to the industry.
Awesome. Mate, thank you for that. Yes, you're obviously wearing a lot of hats, and just for our listeners, you do have a little one at home, little Zali. So if you hear a little bit of a baby crying in the background, it's all good. She is being well looked after.
She's having one of those moments today, so it's a high possibility.
Exactly, all good. All right, so let's jump into it. So, mate, what does adaptability mean to you?
Yeah, it's a great question, and obviously it's part of this whole series. And I think the adaptability for me comes from being able to play the game that I'm playing right now effectively. Because if you're playing a sport and you're on the field and you've got a tough competitor, you need to adapt and you need to change your strategy in order to get a good score. So I think adaptability, there was something that came to me when you pitched this question to me yesterday when you said, let's do this interview series. And this was the first question. I thought, it really depends on the game that you're playing. So for me right now, adaptability as a business owner meant step back, take check of everything that I've achieved up until now. Where is the business positioned? How are we placed? And so taking check of the past, taking check of the present, and then looking forward to the future and being able to adapt to the future to make I keep saying this to my team, let's come out of this bulletproof. Because if we can implement any new systems and adapt to the current world's needs, then we'll be bulletproof. If you can come out of a recession strong, then you'll be bulletproof. So adaptability for me just means knowing where you're at, knowing the field that you're on to know what game to play, because changes are going to come, and adaptability needs to be just part of what we do as human beings. If we know that we're here to help people through fitness education, personal training, then we will adapt every day. We'll adapt every session. A client might come in with different needs. You need to adapt. And right now in today's climate, we need to adapt our entire business model, and some say pivot. Some have gone online completely. Some have had to close down like I had to. So it's, I think adaptability has more about being strong with who you are and knowing where you're at for the game that you're playing, because you'll always be able to adapt if you come back to that.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, mate. So how is your business? And I know that you've got multiple businesses that you've touched on, but how are the businesses that you're involved in? How have they had to adapt recently?
We were closed. We got 16 hours notice to close here in Australia. All gyms had to shut down in 16 hours time. So we did that and adapt. Like right there, we then went to the industry body. So we went to Fitness Australia, we went to the health department, and we had to understand what the rights were of our members to make sure that we didn't do the wrong thing in terms of their billing, make sure that we were doing the right thing legally. And then once you take check of all the legal requirements, for us, it was about coming back to our root cause again and understanding our true purpose, which was let's make healthy happen for our members and the community. So our business adapted locally I actually created another side business separate because my Anytime Gyms, obviously that's part of a franchise. So as a business owner, I couldn't necessarily build something within that network that competed against the brand. So we went online, which is something completely different to the Anytime model, and offered a 28-day challenge. So my team, my club managers became content creators and because we didn't have a gym, they had no gym to manage and I wanted to keep them employed. So I had to find work for them to do. So they started learning about online education software, developing content, learning about how the different systems integrate and connect, and then marketing to those members to get them to sign back up for the 28-day challenge. So I basically said to them all in a team meeting, your job description is like, just throw it in the bin. Your whole entire job description has changed. And you almost have to just like forget everything from the past that I ever told you about managing this business. And we now run an online 28-day challenge. So we adapted in that way.
Fantastic.
Doing some online live streaming classes as well. We offered live streaming classes and that was a great way to just keep in touch with the members. Obviously, we weren't able to sell any memberships. And what they think the best thing for the gym's perspective was a pure focus on retention because we wanted people to come back online when the business's doors were reopened. So how could we maintain that relationship to keep our retention numbers high and make sure that people felt safe and secure and they felt engaged enough to come back and train with us was another part that we had to adapt on. There was no focus on sales, it was all retention.
Okay, awesome. So you've probably touched on this next question a little bit already, but you've obviously got some trainers within the two clubs that you own. How did they have to adapt, and what sort of major changes do they make to their day-to-day operations?
We had one that adapted really well, was in constant contact with us to help create this content for the challenge. So he was doing a lot of the movement workouts and the live streams as part of that retention strategy. He also, there was different stages of the COVID-19 lockdown that allowed him to still work with people one-on-one. I think gyms weren't allowed to open, but trainers could work outdoors if you weren't inside a facility for a little while. So he had to practice his own physical distancing within a, no contact style training. And funnily enough, he also created his own online personal training coaching program. So he's got his own side business there online on top of everything that came out of it. And to be honest, the other one didn't cope very well.
Okay.
I wanted to say that because it is the reality. And I think a lot of PTs who are new in the industry, which I'm guessing would be a proportion of this network that we're talking to now, a lot of people in PTA network are either studying or just recently graduating. That would take up a fair chunk.
Yep.
And I think it's important to be aware of what I said before in the first question about playing the right game for the level that you're at. So if you're in your career, the first thing you need to do is do your duty. So it's your duty to get out there and learn off industry experts. You can't leave your Cert 3-4 and go out and be the bee's knees trainer earning $150 a session. It's not realistic. You need to create a network, build relationships, and unfortunately, some of these facilities or mentors are your lifeline. And this is the other trainer's situation where there wasn't as much experience, didn't have the network, and they literally used the facility as their lifeline. So when the facility shut down, they were cut off from their network and weren't able to bridge that gap in reconnecting. So to be quite honest, that they didn't adapt very well.
Okay, wow. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. So we obviously touched a little bit on the database of new trainers and those that maybe have recently graduated. What new skills would you like to see PTs bringing to this new environment?
New skills. I think a focus on, I've got my support crew in the background there. A focus on what's important. So understanding your personal brand and why you do what you do. Again, it's a little bit of a Simon Sinek reference here. I think a lot of people have probably referenced that. To understand your why. A lot of people in our industry talk about this. If you haven't heard of it already, check it out.
Yep.
But if you start with your why and you bring it to your environment, you'll always find a way to adapt. You'll always find a way to bridge the gap of change, because you'll always come back to that and you'll find people who believe what you believe. So if you're coming out of Cert 3-4 as a PT, I think understanding where you're at in your career, as long as you keep coming back to your core offering or what you're about, that is one really handy point. And for others, I think it gave a laser sharp focus on what's truly important in their business.
Yes.
Because they didn't have the income, they didn't have the traffic coming through, people were in lockdown, and it made them reflect on, I can't see people face to face. What am I truly trying to do here? I want to help people through physical movement and activity and fitness. So the method that I do to do this would be online, but I really need to keep my message strong and make sure that I can still provide these services in a pandemic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it sort of comes back to that awareness. I think that's a skill that trainers I would love for trainers to come out of a Cert 3-4 course, understanding the game that they're playing for the position that they're in, and just expecting that it is going to take time. I think time is your friend right now, and you've got years under your belt of building those networks and building relationships and learning, just being a sponge, continuing the education process, even though you're getting a little bit of money for the efforts.
Absolutely. Fantastic. What surprised you most either about yourself or your team during this time?
Okay, so as a personal training studio owner years ago, obviously you create such a great culture because it's one-on-one. You don't get a chance to get in there like people do inside a 24-hour fitness center. People walk in with their headphones on, towel around their shoulder, scan themselves in, head down, straight to, whatever they're going to do to warm up, and they jack some weights. It's a different culture to a personal training environment that I'm used to personally. So I found through talking to some other gym owners that during lockdown, JobKeeper kicked in, which was a government, obviously, paid initiative to help businesses pay their staff to keep them in their job. Some other fitness facility owners had their staff at home with their feet up on the coffee table watching Netflix, earning JobKeeper, because their interpretation of this was, I get to keep my job and get the dole, and I'll come back when you reopen, which is crazy for me. So and what it gave me about what surprised me, and it's not so much of a surprise, but what it told me was that I've got a really good culture, because my guys were never busier. We didn't have a gym. We had no calls to make. There was no sales to make, but I was on the phone to my guys at 10 o'clock at night sometimes, creating content for our challenge. We were cleaning the club. We did a mini renovation in one of them. We re-engineered everything. I got my guys to clean every business card, every fridge magnet, everything that was in the facility was cleaned. So what I was surprised and I was surprised to hear that other businesses didn't have that culture where people were just on board with the mission. So I think culture is the real surprise for me. I felt like we absolutely have nailed our team culture within our business, and COVID was proof of that, because I think it gave everyone an opportunity to step up instead of hibernate. And yeah, my team really stepped up, which was cool.
That's awesome to hear. I mean, that's obviously kudos to you for leading that way, because I think often that sort of culture starts with leadership, but it's also about choosing the right people and making sure you've invested in them enough so that when the chips are down, they're gonna work hard for you. So that's awesome to hear.
And that is a success story. At the same time, it's taken me 3 years to get there.
Of course,
like overnight it's been 3 years. You know, I've spoken to you about it personally as a friend. It's been frustrating getting the right team, and it takes time. You know,
absolutely.
Time. If things don't cost you money, they cost you time.
Absolutely.
So we need to look at, and coming out of COVID has been great, because it all started 3 or 4 months ago now. It's still with us today. Who knows where it's going to end? That's the timeline. So what have we got? We've got time up our sleeve. So I think that's the beauty of, for me right now, we're midway through the year. There's potentially still 12 months of this to go. And my whole mindset has just shifted. I was just explaining it to a fellow franchisee of Anytime Fitness yesterday. And he was wondering about a marketing campaign and what can we do to get a few people in from a sales perspective. And I just had to stop and just say, I'm not even thinking about it. I've actually got the blinkers on as far as sales goes. And I'm using this entire year right through to the next 6 months to I'm just going to keep cleaning. I'm just going to keep focusing on our systems to make sure that my team are trained. They know how to communicate. They understand body language and behavior. So when we do hit our straps and we're firing on all cylinders again, and I actually think this will be a better way to attract more members in the future, because it will breed through our culture. So I'm really looking forward to this slow build up over the next 6 to 12 months as things come back online and people feel safer, because I've spent so much time on the people side, and I can see that strength is just building more strength.
Yeah, great. That's awesome to hear. I mean, it's great to hear you're playing the long game, because I think the reality is, you know, the industry as a fitness industry, we're still a pretty young industry, but if you look at the challenges that's been thrown the industry over the years, and the more recent one is the sort of GFC back in 2008, the fitness industry did really well out of the back of it. So I think there's exciting things to come for both the industry, but also for people coming into the industry, because it is a changing landscape.
Absolutely.
What's one key adaptation you're going to continue post COVID, post all these changes? What's going to become part of your operating process or your business moving forward?
Yeah, one thing, as I mentioned before, was this 28-day challenge. And I actually ran the challenge 2.5 years ago after shortly buying the 2 gyms. And I ran the challenge with great intentions, and it didn't go very well. And then I had 2 businesses to run, and as you know, culture and everything else gets on top of you. So when we went into lockdown and COVID-19 came through, I had time. So in looking back at the past, based on where I was at right now, what can I do? I picked up that 28-day challenge and I re-engineered it, and I turned it into a 100% online 28-day thing. And it was all about behavior change. And we put a lot of work into it, as I've been describing in the call right now. And we are about to launch that in another 3 weeks, because the demand for the online version that we ran during COVID was perfect for people looking to work out from their homes. So if people aren't in the gym, we're making healthy happen by helping them work out in their home right now. So it's online and offline. So we're going to take that with us into the future.
That's awesome.
And what it's enabled me to do now is think, gee, what else can I do? So we're looking at our member onboarding sequence inside the gym. So when they come in, what emails do they get from Anytime Fitness, and how can our fitness department, how can the personal trainers start to build a relationship with them right from the outset to make sure that they're onboarded correctly? We've got more of a coaching mindset rather than a 24-hour. Some people like to think of it as an equipment rental business. You know, you got your key fob, go and rent my equipment. That's fine, mate. That's fine. Just go and lift my equipment. That's cool. That's not a relationship that I want to have in my gyms as much as it is a coaching relationship. I'd love for everyone to walk in there expecting to get a coach and get looked after. So that adaptability that we picked up in coaching people online, I'm also using the online services now in club to make sure that the online can support the offline.
Right.
So it creates a better bulletproof scenario for the future, and allows us to adapt if anything like this was to happen in the future as well.
That's awesome. Well, mate, thank you again for joining us. For our listeners and viewers out there, if any of them are in the Albury-Wodonga area, then Jai would, of course, love to have you for work experience or have you come and have a chat about some opportunities. But, mate, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for sharing your insights, and all the best with this uncertainty and the future adaptations you have to get into your business.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get it all online and help out the members in Albury-Wodonga and potentially a few others online as well. So we're looking to get some coaches on board for this online services as well. So it's exciting times for the future. If we can get out of this strong, it's only going to make us stronger when everything else is back online. So I think that's probably the final takeaway that people can have. If they can be patient, use the time to get strong and make themselves bulletproof, it's only going to help in the future.
Agreed. That's awesome.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers.